My nephew asked for my help, and when my husband and I went to my in-laws' house, we found my father-in-law bedridden and extremely thin. When we saw the terrible state he was in, he was like, "I'm sorry for looking like this." When my husband and I decided to take him in, my sister-in-law, Jessica, said smugly, "You can have Dad. But once we take him in, he's our responsibility." We'd take care of my adorable nephew's request and concerns in one go. But first, there are a few things we need to investigate. One matter would be resolved by calling an ambulance. But another question was, where was Jessica hanging out while neglecting my father-in-law? When that becomes clear, Jessica is probably gonna lose everything. My name is Karen Miller. I'm 38 years old and work at a publishing company in New York. I'm married to John, born to a retired college professor father and a current professor mother, and we've been married for almost 5 years now. Both of us married a bit late because we were passionate about our careers. My publishing job, and his job as an engineer at an electronics company, kept us so busy and fulfilled that marriage wasn't on our minds. But after turning 30, each parent started suggesting us to find a partner, and we got to know through a mutual friend. Luckily, John and I hit it off and got hitched quickly. Both of us were rarely home, and we were thorough about cleaning when we realized each other's days off. People would joke, saying our relationship seemed more like roommates, but we managed to get along well with each other's families and had a good time. We haven't had kids, but neither of us was particularly eager to. We're content thinking we'll just enjoy our retirement years together as best pals. The in-laws never pestered us about having kids. Especially my mother-in-law, being a working woman herself, understood the challenges of juggling work and family, and never pressured me. Then one night, as I was thinking about pulling another all-nighter at work, my phone buzzed. It was a call from my nephew, Tim. What on earth happened? Hello? Oh, thank goodness, Auntie. From the urgency in Tim's voice, I could tell something was wrong. What's going on? It's rare for you to call at this hour, Tim. Yeah, I know you're working, Auntie. But please, can you help Grandpa? Speaking of his grandfather, he's my father-in-law. What happened to Grandpa? Tim paused for a moment. Then, with a frustrated tone, Mom's being awful. She's out having fun and not taking care of Grandpa who's injured. Wanting to get the full story, I asked Tim to meet me at a nearby diner, figuring we could talk over dinner. Over here, over here. Waving enthusiastically, Tim called me over. He had already started eating, probably starving. I quickly chose something from the menu, and while watching him eat voraciously, I immediately asked about the phone call. Sorry, I was really hungry. Haven't been eating well lately. Wait, Tim, aren't you commuting from home to college? Yes, Tim is in his senior year of college. He's got a job lined up after graduation, but he's busy with his thesis and studying for exams. Yeah, but I don't want to waste time commuting, so I've been staying at school a lot. Just go home to change clothes sometimes. That sounds tough. Yeah, but I'm managing. Anyway, Auntie. He stopped eating and looked up. Grandpa isn't getting proper meals at home. For a moment, I didn't understand what he meant. He's not getting fed? What about Grandma? You didn't know that? She's currently overseas for a conference, and she's also traveling with some research acquaintances over there. She'll be gone for about 2 months, so another month before she's back. I wasn't aware of that. My mother-in-law, a current university professor, often travels for conferences. So, just because it was abroad that time, it wasn't something she would necessarily inform us about. We'll be fine. We have Jessica. My mother-in-law said nonchalantly. Jessica is Tim's mother. She's my sister-in-law. She's John's sister. My husband John always knew what he wanted to do since his middle school and high school days, so he went to college for it and is now working hard in his career. However, Jessica didn't seem to take after her parents. She wasn't dumb, but she didn't really like studying. So, she got married right after finishing school. The one was one of her father's students and was then a promising young executive at a renowned company. Thinking it would be great to live with a teacher he respected, they decided to live with her parents. When their child was born, they named him Tim, taking inspiration from her father's name. My brother-in-law apparently wanted to use the same name as his father-in-law, but Jessica firmly objected and chose a different one. Currently, my brother-in-law is in Alaska, working on a major project with international partners. Mom doesn't really like Grandpa. I mean, she kinda hates him. Really? Yeah. When they're together, they pretend to be okay, but she subtly bullies him. Bullies? Even I noticed that when they talk, she makes snide remarks at him. And she really hated that I was close to Grandpa. I see. Never did I think I'd hear the unknown side of Jessica's family from my nephew. Mom wasn't answering my calls, and when I went home recently, it was eerily quiet, so I used my spare key to get in. I heard a noise coming from Grandpa's room. When I checked, it was bad. How bad? You know how lively Grandpa was, right? He was in bed in the middle of the day. When I opened the door, he tried to get up but couldn't. I rushed to him, and he has smelled like not taking shower in days. What? Looking around, I saw opened water bottles everywhere. The trash bin only had a few snack wrappers. I was shocked. I asked when it started, and he said it's been like that since Grandma left and after he fell down the stairs and hurt his leg. That's like, for almost 3 weeks. Wait, so he's been bedridden all this time? He avoided my question, but probably. His ankle and knee are injured, so even going to the bathroom is a struggle. It seems he sometimes wets the bed, and no one seems to change the sheets. That's terrible! I don't know. But I quickly went to a nearby grocery store and bought him some ready-made food. He cried, saying it's been ages since he had a proper meal. He told me Mom just leaves him some snacks and a couple of water bottles and hardly checks on him. Did she take him to a doctor? She just bought some pain relief patches and left them for him. But Auntie, if he doesn't move around, his legs are gonna get weaker, especially at his age. True. I firmly replied. And I found out something. It was Mom's fault that Grandpa fell. Huh? What do you mean? Unlike Auntie's condo, our place is an old 2-story house, right? Yeah, that's true. You know, the stairs from back in the day before everything was accessible, they tend to be pretty steep. Oh, I see what you mean. We were talking about renovating it at one point, but kept saying it's still fine. He said he slipped, but I can't believe that happened. And the thing is, even without doing a full renovation, they had put anti-slip tape on the stairs. But when I checked it out last time, there was one spot where the tape was missing. So you think? I believe my mom took it off as some sort of spite. Jessica would go that far? Ever since I can remember, Mom always used to complain to me about Grandpa, never to my dad. I hated hearing it. I thought maybe she had her reasons, having grown up in this house and all. But after seeing the tape missing, I realized she's probably been doing stuff like this for a long time. I see. All right then. Thanks for talking to me. I'll sort it out with John either today or tomorrow. I promised him, then went back to work and managed to finish everything in one go. Then I called my husband, John, and filled him in on the situation. On the other side of the smartphone screen, John was visibly angry. We're gonna rescue Dad tomorrow. The next day, the 3 of us made our way to the in-laws' place. If Jessica wasn't there, that was fine. We'd just say we happened to stop by and found Grandpa in bad condition, and we were planning to call an ambulance. Tim unlocked the door and was like, "I'm home." From inside, Jessica, dressed like she was about to leave, came out. "What are you doing here? You didn't say you were coming." "Well, I didn't need to see you. I came to see Grandpa." With that, Tim opened the door wider and let us in. "What? John, Karen, why are you here today?" "Jessica, I heard everything from Tim. What did you do to Dad?" Saying that, John cornered Jessica against a wall. Using that opportunity, Tim and I slipped by. "Hey, what the heck you're doing? What, is there something you don't want us to see?" Ignoring Jessica's choked voice behind us, we headed for my father-in-law's room. As I confirmed Tim opened the door, I dialed 911. I informed them that there was an elderly man in a bad condition and needed help immediately. My father-in-law, seeing us suddenly burst in, slowly propped himself up and weakly asked, "Karen? What's going on?" His voice was nothing like the vibrant one I was familiar with. His face was haggard and pale. His once slightly hefty frame was terrifyingly thin. The room was as Tim described, a mess. Not wanting Jessica to notice any changes, Tim intentionally left it as it was. As planned, Tim began capturing the room with his smartphone's camera. Scattered plastic bottles, a trash can seemingly filled only with snacks wrappers, and most notably, his pajamas and the sheets of the bed he was lying on. Noticing my gaze, my father-in-law spoke in a voice I'd never heard before. "Sorry for the mess." "It's okay, don't apologize." In reality, it was filthy. It hadn't been changed for days, perhaps weeks, and shows signs of sweat stains and several small spots from urine leaks. As for the pajamas, it was even worse. "I'm sorry, Grandpa, but I need to capture this too." Tim captured every detail of that bed, leaving nothing out. "Do you not have a cell phone? To communicate with my mother-in-law?" "I used to email with my wife, but I lost the phone when I fell." Just then, footsteps approached. John entered, with Jessica trying to restrain him from behind. The moment John entered, his face turned grim and he shouted, "How could you keep Dad in such a place? We'll take care of him." "Oh, really? Fine. I don't need him. You can have him." As we argued, the sound of an ambulance siren approached. Half a month later, we were headed to the airport to pick up my mother-in-law. We were waiting, thinking she'd be out soon, when we saw Jessica rushing towards the exit. "All right, let's move. Everyone got the plan?" Everyone nodded in response to John's check. "Welcome back, Mom. Bet it was a long trip. Let me help your bags." "I'm all right." My mother-in-law, holding on to her luggage, walked past Jessica and toward us. "Mom, wait up. You're walking too fast, huh?" Jessica, chasing after her, was taken aback when she saw us. "Hey, I'm back. Good to see you're well." And saying this was my father-in-law, standing tall in a suit, reminiscent of his working days. "Mom, wait up. Don't walk too fast." "No way. Why is Dad here?" Jessica was surprised to see us all together. "What? John? Karen? And Tim, you too?" Then, my father-in-law turned to Jessica and said, "Why? Of course I should be the one to pick her up. Or did you think I couldn't make it?" "Well, I just..." "Look, even after the twisted ankle and the inflamed knee, see? I'm fine." My father-in-law then made a running motion on the spot. "But, if it weren't for Tim notifying John and Karen at that time and getting me to the hospital, things could have been bad. They said even my blood condition was bad. I'm gonna steer clear of sweets for a while." He raised his hands in a dramatic gesture of surprise, reminiscent of his days as a college professor. "Oh, that's too bad. I wanted to go to a nice cafe with you for some coffee and cake." "You ruined even that pleasure. Jessica, I always told you to prepare your dad's meals properly when you're out, as a devoted housewife." Jessica shrank back, covering her head with her hands. After all, she was most afraid and at odds with her mother. Probably took advantage of my mother-in-law's absence to do as she pleased, even neglecting my father-in-law. "You told me when you got married. You'd take care of everything in the house, never work outside, and stay a full-time housewife. Fine, I had no problem with that, as long as you lived up to your role. I even gave you an allowance equivalent to what I'd pay a housekeeper. But it seems that role wasn't for you." But even housekeepers need a break. You wouldn't understand since you're always out doing whatever you want." "Oh? And what do you mean by a break?" "Wait, why are you here?" Suddenly entering the conversation was my brother-in-law. No one expected him to be here since he was stationed alone in Alaska. I got a call from Tim and John, and I rushed back. "If you were gonna come back, you could have at least told me." "Really? You're the one saying that?" At that moment, John intervened with a calm and was like, "Hey guys, let's calm down. We shouldn't do this here. Let's all move." When everyone moved to an airport lounge, there was a woman waving from a corner of a large table. Beside the woman was a man, looked down and visibly shaking. And in front of them stood a person holding documents, clearly a lawyer. Jessica was visibly shaken upon seeing these three. My brother-in-law gestured, beckoning Jessica over there. "You know them well, don't you?" My brother-in-law said that coldly. "Hello, nice to meet you." The woman began, urging everyone to sit. She then turned to Jessica with a warm smile and was like, "Jessica, my husband has often spoken of you. I'm his wife." Jessica gasped in disbelief. "I was contacted by this lawyer here. I had an inkling about my husband's affair, so I wasn't surprised when I was told." "Hey! You told your wife!" What choice did I have? They had all the evidence. The lawyer then spread out photos and documents on the table. The pictures showed two individuals strolling in scenic spots. A scream escaped from Jessica. Indeed, she wasn't just taking time off. She used her free time to go on hotel visits and vacations with her affair partner. I noticed something was wrong with Grandpa when you were on vacation. But even if it was another day, you would have been out, Bob remarked. Tim said that, glaring at his mother. You suck. What would a kid know about this? Hey, Mom, do you remember what I'm studying in college? Huh? I'm in law school. Ever notice why I rarely come home? It's because I have my state exams coming up. I've been staying over for study sessions. You know, what you did is considered elder abuse under the state laws. What? It can result in criminal charges soon, Mom. Indeed. As Tim pointed out, neglecting elderly individuals can be elder abuse in many cases. The reason we took my father-in-law to the hospital by ambulance was that the hospital had a duty to report this to the police. It's not like it's not a crime if the family doesn't report it. You turned on your own mother. I don't want to be lectured by someone who doesn't even know what I'm studying. Tim spat out the words. He must have had various feelings towards his mother all this time. I always knew I was a workaholic, but I knew Tim wanted to pursue law after hearing about your father's story. What the hell have you been listening to? Enough, enough, enough. That's why I hate smart people. Always looking down on others. You're the same, aren't you, Karen? Jessica suddenly stood up and addressed me. I don't get what you're saying. See? You probably think I only went to a community college. I always thought you were great at housework and kept your room tidy. I admired you as a homemaker. So what? To be honest, I never asked John or your parents about your background. Jessica looked stunned. To me, you're just John's sister. I always thought it was amazing how you had kids and raised them since I couldn't have any. You're lying! Why would I care about that stuff? But the way you treated your father, and on top of that, having an affair. I was really shocked. Upon hearing my words, Jessica's legs gave out, and she slumped into a chair. Jessica, we're getting divorced. It's over. My brother-in-law's voice echoed heavily in the room. I get it. So I'm heading home today. No, you can't go back there anymore. My mother-in-law casually told Jessica that. What did you say? We sold that house. We've decided to move to a facility, seniors share house, with a nice view along the train line. A facility? Why? Because we realized you aren't willing to do anything. If you can't even fulfill your duties as a housewife and keep partying and causing inconvenience to others, then you're not our daughter anymore. Remember when you said you wanted someone educated, with a good salary, and tall? I even suggested someone from my students. That's when she happily accepted the matchmaking, I heard from my father-in-law. But since Tim was born, things between Jessica and my brother-in-law had been tense. My mother-in-law was like, it's because of that situation that he took on a long-term, out-of-state job by himself. After hearing from John, I did some research and found a few condo-style living facilities that seemed comfortable. The movers should have transferred the essentials to the storage unit by now. Since your dad was discharged from the hospital, we're just gonna briefly impose on John. Once we finalize the facility, we'll move right in. But, what about me? My brother-in-law handed Jessica a key. We've rented an accommodation for you. Just for 1 month. Your things should be moved there. My belongings. Paid for by your parents and me, right? I packed some clothes for you. You have enough money for a month, don't you? Jessica bit her lip. My brother-in-law continued relentlessly. Don't worry. The cops will be coming for you in less than a month. What about Tim? He's got his exams coming up, right? Now you care? Tim snorted. I've always packed light and often stay at school. So, I got an apartment rented till graduation. So I can focus on my exams and thesis without any family drama. You're abandoning your mom? Too late for that. And there's still someone who needs you, Mom? Tim turned to the wife of Jessica's affair. Well, we better get going. You two should have a good talk with her. The affair's wife smiled at us and said thank you. You shouldn't have been such a failure of a daughter. No matter how much we tried to tell you, you just never got over your lazy habits. With that, my father-in-law gestured to everyone that it was time to go. Not long after, my mother-in-law received a call informing her that Jessica had been reported. The photos we had taken and the scene of my father-in-law being rushed to the ER were the damning evidence. It was considered as a crime. Turns out her affair was with a man she met on a dating app, and they had no other connection. The affair's wife asked getting divorced with him, and they're in process of division of property. My brother-in-law also got divorced with Jessica. It seemed it caused quite a ruckus at the affair's workplace. Once Jessica got divorced, she promised to change herself, but we couldn't believe that. Tim, already an adult, refused to ever see her again. Tim was like, "She never really cared about me from the beginning." After a while, we visited the new condo-style facility where my in-laws were staying. With the sale of their house and property fetching a good price, this condo had more than enough space for the two of them. It was located a straight shot from my mother-in-law's workplace. A spacious living and dining area and a kitchen for light cooking. But this place also had a dining hall that prepared nutritious meals. "I think I'll take my meals here every day," my father-in-law declared. "Oh, I don't want to cook breakfast either, so I'll join you." My mother-in-law, still working full-time, probably doesn't want to bother with breakfast. On a higher floor, there's a communal pool with a great view. My father-in-law, always fond of large pools, was thrilled. Tim opened a door to another room, shouting in excitement. "Wow, Grandpa, Grandma! This entire room is filled with books." "Yeah, if you find anything you like, take it. If you're gonna become a lawyer, there are many useful books here." "Now, don't say that and then later complain that you can't find a certain book." Did I ever do that?" He joked and everyone laughed. "In the future, we'd like to live in a place like this." John agreed and was like, "We gotta work hard and save up until then." Speaking of work, with all this commotion, I've really piled it up. We laughed. We all imagined how often we'd gather here in the future. It was a comforting thought.